Hey, Vincent.
Hey, Shaylin, how are you?
Good, good. How's it going?
Going good, and yourself?
Good. It will be Ben and Manny on today,
Okay,
and I'm going to pop in a little bit towards the end and kind of pepper them with some questions.
okay. Yes, ma'am.
So they should be coming on any minute now.
Is it Ben Corson?
Yes.
Okay.
He
Yeah, I
is.
saw his name popped up, and then it disappeared a second ago.
Yes, he's our vehicle manager, and Manny Santoyo. He is our director of Latin services and outreach, Latino
Okay.
services and outreach. Yes.
What did you say Ben's title was again?
He's vehicle manager.
Okay, thank you. All right, there's Ben. And Lucretia joining.
There's Ben.
How are y'all doing?
I'm gonna cut
Hey.
my video off, okay? Hey.
Hey, Lucretia. Hey, Ben.
How you doing?
All right, appreciate you being able to jump on this call.
Yeah, no worries.
This
Let me
evening.
grab some headphones.
No problem.
I thought I cut that video off. It's still on. How you doing, Vincent?
Good, and yourself, ma'am?
Doing well, doing well.
So Ben, we'll just wait for Manny to jump on, and then
Okay.
at 6, I'll start admitting people from the waiting room, and then I'll introduce you and your title, and then Manny and his title, and then I'll just let y'all go from there, and then I'll black out my screen. That way, you guys will be the focal point, and then when I pop back on screen, it's essentially going to be like a 2 to 3 minute warning before we open it up for questions
Okay.
from the audience.
Cool. I'm gonna try other headphones real quick.
Hi, I just wanted to do a quick sound check. Is it working?
Yes,
Yep.
sir. You're good.
Sounds good.
Okay. I was telling Ben before you jumped on that once people start popping up in the waiting room, I'll admit them now that it's 6 o'clock. And then you guys can take it from there. I'm going to black out my screen while y'all are talking. And then when I come back on screen, that'll just be like a 2 to 3 minute warning for y'all so to wrap up. And then we can open up for questions from the audience. All right, well, if you guys want to go ahead and get started, I can introduce y'all. This session is being recorded, so you guys can share on the Road Lending website as well. And I'll just admit people as they jump on the call. So thank you guys. Good evening. My name is Vincent Coronado and I work for Big Thought. I've had the pleasure for the past few weeks of working with On the Road Lending and putting together these virtual workshop series. This is part 3 of our 3-part series. And like I said, everything is being recorded and will be shared on On the Road Lending website after this airs. So I have Mr. Ben Corson, who's a vehicle manager at On the Road Lending, and also Mr. Manny Santoyo, who's the director of Latino Services and Outreach for On the Road Lending. So these 2 gentlemen are going to be your hosts for this evening. I'm going to pop back on at the end of the call at around the 30 to 35 minute mark to open up for questions from the audience. So Manny and Ben, take it away.
Sounds good. Thank you guys so much for hosting once again. So far we've talked about credit and budgeting, and we've talked about our program in general, but today we're going to be discussing, we're going to be more detailed about what it's like to buy a car. And Ben here, he's going to be sharing his some of his previous experiences working formerly in car sales and now being our vehicle manager at our organization and working with clients daily to help them find reliable and affordable vehicles. And Ben, can you share with us what it's like, what that's like, what you currently do, introduce yourself, what you currently do, and tell us a little bit about what your day-to-day looks like.
Yeah, so a little background on me. I started car sales in 2017. I worked in the pre-owned department at a Toyota dealership for about a year. And then I switched over to the new car department. So I've got experience in both new and used. And after about 2 years there, just decided to hop on board here and help people instead of selling cars. So happy to be here. To go over the process of purchasing a car through On the Road Lending, first we do have a coach that kind of builds a budget with you and determines what vehicle fits you best. So after we've kind of narrowed down the vehicle as far as like a sedan, SUV, truck, or something like that, we start looking around for reputable dealers that sell vehicles. We do have ones that we prefer to go to. The main ones we go to are Avis Car Sales and Hertz Car Sales. They are previous rental cars, but they do sell them at very low prices with very low miles. And there's no games, no gimmicks. They don't take advantage of people. So that's why we really like going there. We've had experiences going to big dealerships where they try and steal our financing and get our clients to purchase things that they don't need to purchase. So we like going to them mainly. And then once we've kind of narrowed down and picked a car that you like, we'll contact the dealer and schedule your test drive for you. Make sure the dealer knows all the information they need to, and kind of let them know our program and how we work. Once you've test driven the vehicle and you let us know that you're deciding to move forward, we'll confirm everything with you. We'll send you information about our insurance requirements and how to set that up. We also do quotes during coaching, so you have you're prepared for what insurance will be on the vehicle that you're moving forward with. Then we'll receive a purchase order from the dealer. It just goes over all the numbers, the taxes, and it also gives us a chance to see if they're hiding any fees in there. So we're kind of backup for you, just to see if they're sliding anything in there, making you pay for things that you don't need to pay for. And then whenever we have that, we also rate out a warranty to figure out, we normally like having a warranty that covers the car for the length of the loan. So we normally, our average is about 60 months and 75,000 miles of coverage. So we'll get that built into the loan as well. And then once we have everything ready, we send all the numbers over to you. We go through them with you and make sure that you understand all the numbers. And once we have your approval on that, we send out your loan documents. We send them out through DocuSign over to your email. So you don't have to show up to our location or print out anything. You can just sign them on your phone or your computer. And then once they've been signed and we have verification of your insurance, we will send funds to the dealer. Whenever we do that, we make sure we're all set and that the car is ready for you. And then they'll release the vehicle to you. We send out copies of your loan documents, all the warranty information, and then how to set up your account with us. And then, so that's kind of the basic overview of kind of beginning to end of purchasing a car through us.
Thank you for sharing that. So there's a few things that you talked about. You talked about, what it's like for a client of ours to go to a dealership. Can you tell us what some of the benefits are of people getting their financing through a credit union versus, or an organization like On the Road Lending versus going directly to a dealership and trying to get approved for financing the same day that they're trying to purchase a vehicle? And some background on that. So within our organization, for every person that comes in, before we even talk about a vehicle, the first thing we want to do, we want to make sure that people are ready to have a vehicle. So that's part of the reason why we do the budgeting work. Our coaches work with them. They make sure that they are ready to take on a monthly payment within their budget, and then we start looking for the vehicle. So what are some of the benefits and to people getting their finances in line before going to a dealership versus just walking into a dealership and hoping to drive off with the car? And can you also talk a little bit about what some of those contracts look like and what the difference is between something that we would do within our organization, or if they were to seek financing through a credit union or another institution?
So the best thing about knowing about your financing is it keeps the dealer from being able to play more games with you. Whenever they tell you what rate you're going to get, that's never truly the case. It's always good to figure out your financing and know your credit beforehand. That way you can know realistically what type of rates you can get. Because a lot of dealers, they're just going to tell you a high rate just because they want to convince you that you're going to have a high payment. And once you're convinced you have a high payment, they can sell you anything. And that's how they make money and take advantage of you. So it's really good to know your limit, I guess you could say. And that's another thing that is good about going through us is we help you figure out your limit, and we try and stick to that and, not take advantage of it. We want to give you a loan that you can pay, not something that's going to, bury you in debt or anything like that. So that's a good advantage of us. Easy way to determine your credit is the one I use mainly is Mint. You can just plug in all your stuff. I know a lot of people have been resistant to using that. I feel comfortable using it because it's run by Intuit, which does TurboTax, and they do a lot of taxes for everybody during tax season. So I trust them. And you can go there, figure out your credit scores, and you can also kind of go online and figure out what interest rates you can get based on your credit score without even having to apply at a place. And the best places to go through are kind of any big bank or any credit union. You can definitely do a lot of research to kind of figure out what you prefer to do.
So one of the things that I wanted to add is something that we get to see regularly within our organization is people that come to us after they've bought a car through whether it was through a corner car lot, buy here, pay here place, and then they send us their contract. After reviewing their contract, we realized that they purchased an older vehicle with high miles, typically, just an example, 2013 Toyota with 90,000 miles that they paid $16,000 to $20,000 on, if not more, and they're paying 18 to 27% interest on, right? So when people don't do the work prior to that, when they don't do the budgeting work, when they don't do the research, when they don't look at the value of the vehicles that they're purchasing, I think they're more at risk. And I think that's part of the reason why some of this information is really important for people. So what would you say to somebody that wants to buy a car, but they don't even know where to start? What would be the first step for somebody who wants to buy a car?
The first step, I think, goes back to just knowing your credit. That's one of the big things that goes into purchasing a vehicle is, nobody really has $15,000 to $20,000 to just fork up to buy a car. Almost everybody finances a vehicle. So being able to finance something and knowing your credit, I'd say that's the most important thing when it comes to purchasing a vehicle. One thing to kind of, I guess, know is, a down payment definitely helps you get approved. It helps you get a lower interest rate. So that's another thing, is make sure you're financially ready for something like that. If your credit is decent, sometimes you don't even need to do a down payment. But if you're a first-time buyer, or sometimes your credit is struggling, a down payment definitely helps, and it looks better in the bank's eyes as far as getting a loan.
So I do want to, can you talk about what a down payment does, what it actually is, and what you said that it makes, that when you have a down payment, you're more likely to get a loan. So I think there's a lot of misconceptions about down payments, especially within the Hispanic community. Prior to learning about on-the-road lending and prior to having negative experiences at dealerships myself in the past, I didn't quite understand what a down payment would do. When, I always thought that that's maybe money that you give to the dealer so that they can just give you the car, but it doesn't really go towards the cost of the vehicle. Or a lot of times, dealers, salespeople, most of them work on commission, right? Mm-hmm. So what does a down payment actually do? And why do you and why do you think that people should save for a down payment before wanting to look for a car?
So one of the big things banks look at is LTV is a phrase that they commonly use. It's loan to value. And what that is the amount that you're being lent compared to the value of the vehicle. So once you break down everything, you have the price of the car, you have the sales tax, if you decide to get a warranty or not, and trade-in value and stuff like that. Once that's all added together, you get your total amount, and then your down payment goes towards that amount. There's multiple ways. If you have your own financing, you can pay your down payment to your bank, or you could pay it to the dealer. So there's two ways to do it. But the down payment lowers that loan to value, and a lower loan to value normally means a lower interest rate. So that's, it's kind of a risk rating for the banks and how they can decide, if the loan is good or if it's worth their given a low interest rate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
So what do you think you would consider, let's say there's a big, like you were saying earlier, that people need to be looking at their interest and the price of what they're buying, not necessarily their payment. Can you explain how that process works? Why is it that whenever somebody goes to buy a vehicle at a dealership, there's a big focus on what the monthly payment is going to be, and not necessarily the actual price of the vehicle, the warranties, any other type of insurances that are included in the contract?
Before I do that, I just want to touch base. I think I kind of forgot to answer it, but what is a good amount for a down payment? I think you mentioned it before. It could be anywhere from 500 to, you know, a couple of thousand. I think a good amount to go off of is probably the amount of taxes you're going to pay. At least cover your taxes, because if you roll into a loan, you're automatically going to have negative equity just because your taxes is added onto the vehicle. But just wanted to share that. But going back to it, what to pay attention to. The main things you want to pay attention to is the sales price of the vehicle. If you have a trade-in value, that's another thing to pay attention to, and your interest rate and the length of the loan. There's a lot of ways to manipulate payments. You could get a 36-month loan, or you could get a 72, or I've seen 84 and 96-month loans. And that's ways to manipulate a really low payment. And if all you pay attention to is your low payment, you could be thinking you're getting a great deal, and all of a sudden you signed up at 18%, you're paying $5,000 more than what the car is worth, and you're paying it for, you know, 84 months. So try and pay attention to that. I would say for the length of the loan, anywhere from 48 to 72 months, depending on if you're doing a down payment or not. The shorter the term is, the quicker you'll pay it off. And also, one thing to pay attention to is the value of the vehicle. The moment you buy the vehicle, whether it's new or used, it's going to depreciate. It's adding an owner, and that causes the vehicle to depreciate. So a good thing you want to do is make sure you're paying the vehicle as it's depreciating. So if you go really extended terms, let's just make numbers easy. Let's say the vehicle is devaluing $500 each month that you're driving because you're driving a bunch. You know, you want to make sure you're paying that $500 a month to keep up with the devaluation of the vehicle. But if you start getting in a situation where it's devaluing $500 a month and you're only paying $200, that's how you set yourself up for a lot of negative equity, and it will take you, you know, a year or two, maybe even 3 years to kind of dig yourself out of that. So that's one thing to pay attention to. Sales price, easy way to get familiar with that is just go online, Car Gurus, Auto Trader, and just kind of see what price it is compared to other ones. Kelley Blue Book is good at figuring out a good price. So find something that, you know, is a reasonable price, that is a fair price. For trade-in value, same thing. Kelley Blue Book is really good about being rough on the numbers and in a good range. One thing I do recommend is taking your car to CarMax. They do free appraisals, and they'll give you a little voucher that gives you that appraisal amount. And you can even use that for a negotiating tool whenever you go to a dealership. If they won't give you enough, you can slide that over and say, well, CarMax will give me this, and that will kind of help you out. And then interest rates, that's one thing, just knowing your credit, you know, knowing what you qualify for. So those are kind of the 3 to 4 main things to be paying attention to whenever you're looking at all the numbers.
Yes, sir. Shaylin, is there anything you'd like to add?
Yes, I would really want to pepper you guys with a few questions. I know when it comes to car purchasing, that is always, for a lot of people, it's overwhelming. And you don't know whether you should go through financing or if you should go for a cash car. Or let's say I am not ready to go through your program at On the Road Lending, or I'm not ready to get financing on my own through a traditional lender. So if I'm going to get a cash car, what are some things that I should look for? Should I check under the hood? Should I check the tires? Are there any tips that you can give me?
Yeah, so we actually have a checklist that we do send out to clients on things to look for whenever you do go test drive. One of the main things is looking at the tires. Knowing the tread condition. An easy way to tell is just bring like a coin with you, a quarter, nickel, dime, something like that, something you can stick in the tire and see how deep the tread actually goes. And that way you can know if you need new tires, because tires can be very expensive. All of a sudden you need 4 new tires, and that could be anywhere from $400 to $800. So that's one thing that's very important. Another thing you want to look at is inspect the exterior of the vehicle, see if there's any scratches, dents. Hail damage is a big one. One thing you should do is check under the hood, check the battery cables, make sure there's no, you'll see it's kind of like a white powder or like a acidic look. That's just not a good thing to deal with. So make sure that's not there. Check your engine oil as well. Make sure it's looking clear and not dark or brown or black or any of those colors. Once you've kind of inspected the exterior and you get in the car, turn the car on and listen to it start up for about 10-15 seconds. Make sure it sounds like it's running smooth. Even if you don't know what to listen for, you can kind of tell when something just sounds weird. So pay attention to that. One thing a lot of people don't do is check all the buttons, the windshield wipers, lights, all that stuff. You don't really think to do that, and all of a sudden you purchase the car, you're driving it home, you go roll down your window, and all of a sudden the window will roll down. So try and mess with all that stuff. Check out the radio, all that stuff, make sure it works. And then whenever you're test driving the car, turn the radio off so you can hear the car, hear the engine, hear the transmission, hear the tires, the suspension. Even though if you don't know what you're hearing, make sure there's nothing that sounds odd. Whenever you accelerate, make sure it sounds smooth. Whenever you brake, make sure there's no scratching. Sometimes you can feel it in the brake pedal if it just kind of just feels like it's digging in there. And then whenever you're on the inside of the car, check the seats for any scratches, tears, stains, stuff like that. And just make sure it's up to your satisfaction. The main thing you want to do if you do see something that's wrong or that you want addressed on the vehicle is make sure you tell the salesperson that you want it fixed before you start negotiating. If they do decide to fix something that's wrong with the car, make sure you have it written down. A lot of dealers, at least in the Texas area, they use something that's called a WEO. Anything that they're doing to the car, they'll put on a WEO, and make sure you get a copy of that, hold on to it. That is kind of your proof that they are going to fix it. So if they don't have a WEO, just make sure you get it in writing that they're gonna fix it. It goes back to the one thing that they say they're gonna fix it, and all of a sudden you bought the car and they don't, and all of a sudden you're screwed out of a giant cut in the seat or something like that. So just make sure you pay attention to that stuff and address it before finalizing the sale.
Awesome, thank you. You want to share anything, Manny, on that?
Yeah, I just wanted to say something. Buying a house is probably the biggest purchase somebody's going to make in their life. Buying a car is probably going to be the second biggest purchase, especially if they're going to look for a newer vehicle. And that's why it's important to do your research and to be informed about the decisions you're going to make. When you're buying a cash car, I think it's a little different. You do have to look for everything that Ben just mentioned. But I think you have to be more thorough. There's one of the biggest issues that I've seen within the cash car market recently is that people roll back the miles on the vehicle. So it might be like a 2008 vehicle that's more than 10 years old that has like 100,000 miles. When which a lot of times is not possible, or sometimes they have even less miles. So it's always good to do a Carfax report. It's only $5. There's other alternatives to Carfax. You can do it through the state website. They have different other systems that you can also purchase, but spending $5 to find the history on the vehicle to see if anybody has tampered with the odometer, with the mileage on the vehicle, that's going to save you thousands of dollars down the road. One of the worst things about the cash car market is that there's a high turnaround on the vehicles that people purchase. So it might look like a good vehicle when you're there, when you're checking it out. You drive off in it a few months later, or maybe a year later, you start having a lot of issues, and it's gonna, the price that you paid for it, it might not even be worth that anymore after all the repairs that you have to make. So it's important to consider all those factors whenever figuring out what's best for each person. We do understand that not everybody's gonna be ready to finance a vehicle, especially I would admit, you know, when I was younger, when I was 15, 16-year-old and 16-year-olds and I wanted to drive, I was not going to get myself into a 5-year contract on a vehicle, right? But, you know, so I had to learn how to buy cash vehicles. And just like I bought plenty of great vehicles for myself and for other family members, I had terrible experiences on vehicles that I purchased that were lemons, or everything looked good when I was buying it. And then when I was driving down the road, you know, 60 miles to my small town where I grew up, I started, you know, seeing oil leaking under the motor, under the oil pan seal. I started hearing noises that I shouldn't be hearing. The AC didn't work. Those are all things that add up. You know, repairing your AC can cost between $150 and $500, depending on where you're going, depending on what all needs to be replaced. So all those things add up. And I think those are all factors that people need to consider when making a decision on what type of vehicle is best for them and if they're ready to really buy a vehicle.
So speaking of repairs, something that often comes up a lot are families that have issues with repairs. And what is the difference between just regular maintenance, making sure your vehicle is going to run, and when is it time to let the vehicle go? We may be paying too much for a vehicle. It's time to let it go. What's that cutoff?
So regular maintenance stuff is anything that is supposed to wear out over time or that is not supposed to last forever. So one of the easiest thing is oil change. Your oil change is not supposed to last forever. You know, that one, I would try and change it maybe every 3,000 to 5,000 miles, depending on the age of the vehicle. A lot of the newer cars, sometimes they can even go 10,000 miles before an oil change. A lot of the older cars, you know, if you're getting into, you know, 100,000 miles, 200,000 miles on an old car, you know, start changing the oil, you know, every 3,000 to 5,000 miles. Another thing that's a wearable item is, you know, windshield wipers, light bulbs. You know, these things are not going to be lasting forever. Also, tires, you know, your tires are not going to last forever. So going back to that, you know, coin in the tread thing is, you know, whenever it gets low on tread, you know, that's whenever you know to kind of pay attention to it. It's really easy to just take your vehicle to a dealership and have them diagnose it. Sometimes they do have fees to diagnose it, but if you can't figure out what's going on, or, you know, if you don't know anybody that can look at the car and figure it out for you, definitely take it to a dealership, have them figure out what's going on. And kind of the easiest way to tell if, you know, something's getting crazy is, you know, if the amount of repairs are, you know, 50% to 75% of the value of the vehicle, that's when you start need to thinking, you know, should I put that money into the car or should I save that money, you know, towards your next purchase? So I think kind of right around then, that's just my preference. You know, I'm sure a lot of people have other opinions, but that's just kind of a rule of thumb, something to think about.
Another good question that often comes up is, it's 2020. I want a 2020 car. Why can't I purchase a new car versus a used car? Or is it better to purchase a used one versus a new? What's your take?
Great question. There's pros and cons of both. The good thing about going with a new car, it's never been owned before. There's no damage, no accidents. You don't have to worry about, you know, a dealer hiding the Carfax from you or anything like that with an accident on it. Another good thing about buying new, it comes with a warranty from the manufacturer. You do, every manufacturer, I'm familiar with Toyota's, they do a 3-year, 36,000 mile comprehensive warranty from the day that it's first purchased. And then they do a 5-year, 60,000 mile powertrain. And whenever people are talking about powertrain, that's anything that moves the vehicle. So that's your engine, your transmission, and your drive terrain. So that's your powertrain. Another good thing about buying new is you get newer features. Cars have been changing a lot almost every single year. So there's a lot new features and accessories on newer vehicles compared to ones that are, you know, even 2 to 3 years old. Another thing is new cars are more customizable. You can order it with certain options exactly how you want it. Whenever you buy used, you know, it's kind of however that vehicle comes, or you have to do a lot of searching to find the vehicle exactly how you want it. One good thing about new vehicles is they do offer lower interest rates and the warranties are cheaper on a newer vehicle. And one of the bad things about buying new is the vehicle is going to depreciate the moment you drive it off the lot by at least 10 to 20%. So as long as you are willing to accept that, you know, I don't think there's anything wrong with buying new. If you are the type of person that, you know, every year or two you're trading your car in and getting something new, me personally, I wouldn't get a new car because you're just going to be spending a lot of money. I would try and find a vehicle that's 1 or 2 years old and, you know, do your thing there. The good things about buying a used vehicle is that big depreciation that's already happened. Another thing is the vehicle is already at a lower cost. You know, some used vehicles are almost, you know, half of what they were brand new. So you can get more car for the money buying used. You can also get lower insurance rates. A lot of new cars, because of all the crazy features and all the tech stuff on there, the insurance is going to be a little bit more because it's more stuff they have to cover. A bad thing about used cars is the warranties are more expensive just because, you know, they have miles on them, they're aged. And just even if you buy a reliable vehicle, you do have a higher risk of problems in the future. No matter what vehicle it is, even in a Toyota, if you buy a Toyota with 100,000 miles, you know, you're gonna have a risk of having problems with it. There's not really a wrong or right answer as new to used. It's more of just a preference. And like I said, there's pros and cons to both sides.
I want to add to that. So I think what we focus on within our organization is finding vehicles that are usually priced at the actual price that the vehicle's worth, at the actual value of the vehicle, or lower. And I think that does provide a lot more value when it comes to financing also, just because, like you said, the loan to value is more evened out. People are not paying for something that's actually not worth what they're paying for. And that's something that we focus on within our organization. We don't finance new vehicles for that reason, because like Ben said, you might lose 10 to 20% of the value as soon as you drive it off the lot, as soon as you put a couple hundred miles in. If the car was $26,000 brand new, used is now going to be $22,000. So you're going to lose that, you know, that much money right off the bat. So if you do your research and you're able to find a really good vehicle that has less than 36,000 miles, typically we try to do less than 40,000 miles. 30,000 is pretty good. They still have their warranty. Their manufacturer's warranty, they still have the powertrain warranty, and it has plenty of life. So I think that's a good cushion to have.
Thank you. Those are really good tips from both of you. And I know at On the Road Lending, our whole goal is to make sure that we're helping families and individuals get affordable and reliable transportation based on their character and not their credit score. So we take a lot of effort to make sure we find the right vehicle that works for your budget and your need. But another question that often comes up is, okay, great, we're going to get you into a car. I understand that, but are you selling me a car? Are you a salesperson, or are you helping me? Like, what sets us apart?
So we are not salesperson. I'm not getting a commission or anything on your sale. So I'm not inclined to pressure you into a sale or anything like that. You know, I tell clients all the time that we're here to help. You know, we want to make sure you're happy in a loan, and it goes back to you know, taking a look at the numbers, making sure, you know, they're not, you know, sliding in any numbers on there or any fees or anything like that. So, you know, we don't try and take advantage of people. We want to help them out and make sure they're doing right things for them and their family.
Great, thank you. That's really, really, really important, especially there are so many unscrupulous dealerships and people out there. It's hard to tell who is really advocating for you and who isn't. So we definitely try to do our best to do that. And I love all the tips that you guys have given us as far as making sure that we're not taking advantage of, what to look for. So let's say we are going to one of those dealerships that may be a little shaky. Are there some things we should keep an eye out for? I know you mentioned the changes in the prices. Let's just say it doesn't feel right. Are there like some red flags that we should look for?
So one of the red flags, I was actually going to mention it earlier when Manny was talking about Carfaxes, is any reputable dealership will show you a Carfax. They should have nothing to hide. If a dealership says that they don't do Carfaxes or they don't have it for that specific vehicle, that is a major red flag. That means they are hiding something. Even if they aren't hiding anything, still, I would not even mess with it, to be honest. But that would be the main thing to look for, is look at the Carfax, make sure it's not like a salvage title vehicle or something like that, or a vehicle that's been in a couple accidents or hail damage or anything like that. I would say that that's probably one of the big red flags. But one of the main things that people, I guess, don't really realize is, as a buyer, you are the one with all the power. You can stand up and walk outside, and they will all of a sudden, if they are putting pressure on you and all of a sudden you stand up and walk out, all of a sudden they are going to be on their hands and knees begging you to come back. Please buy this car. Please buy this car. So it's always good to kind of let them know that you have the power, and they know it, but they don't want you to know it. So just keep that in mind. It's really, that's the main thing. Anytime you feel uncomfortable, that's the easiest way to get out of it. If you do think you're in a situation where things are going sour and you just don't want to be there, the easiest way to get a salesman off your back is tell them you're about to buy a house. Whenever you're about to buy a house, you cannot go purchase a vehicle. It's one of the main stipulations of buying a house. In my experience selling cars, the moment someone told me they were buying a house, I wouldn't even try. I would already know that, I have no chance of getting them to buy a car. So that's one little tip. But that's kind of my go-to.
Great answer. Thank you.
Good to know. I also wanted to add to that. So just in my experience and what I've seen on the market, usually those buy here, pay here car lots, corner car lots, the we finance here car lots, their vehicles are typically priced higher than the actual value of the vehicle, and by the thousands. So I think that's something to be very aware of. So if you're better off buying a newer car than an older car from a buy here, pay here place, I think people should do that. Even if they're going to pay a higher interest, if they're going to go through an organization like Cars or a credit union, even if they're going to finance a dealership, at least you're buying a car from a reputable dealership, which I think it's important. I think it's important for people to not overpay for something. And the reason I say that is because I see a lot of ads every single day from those agencies, from those dealerships, and they get a lot of customers. They make a lot of sales, and they make it easy for people to walk in and walk out with the car on the same day. And they know that people need a car, so they take advantage of that. And like Ben said, as consumers, we have the power, we have the authority to say yes or no, to sign or to walk away. And I think that's really important that you said that, Ben.
That's great. Well, something I know a lot of people are asking, and we're coming up close to our Q&A time with our guests. If anyone has any questions, this is COVID-19 season. How are you guys selling cars during COVID-19?
So a lot of dealerships are taking extra measures. I've been keeping up with the dealership I used to work at, and I've been seeing that they've been sanitizing all the inside of the cars, making sure everything's good, wearing masks, all that stuff. So they're doing the right things to make sure that they are still able to sell. Everybody needs a car. Even if you're sitting at home, you still need to go get groceries. So, buying a car is still an essential, thing to do. So as long as, I would give them a call first, make sure that, they're doing everything that they need to stay safe. But, goes back to doing your research first. Don't just show up randomly assuming things.
Is it question time? I don't want to take any more time up.
Yes, ma'am. Does anyone from the audience have any questions for any of our speakers?
If not, I have plenty.
Go for it, Ms. Shaylin.
Okay, I know everyone has Q&As and questions they always want to ask. And I'm thinking back to when I first got my car. My first car was horrible. I want to know, what was your first car? Was it a clunker like everyone else's, or did you have a good experience? And how did that kind of guide you on making the smarter choices now?
So I'll go first. I'll share two car buying experiences. I'll share my first car ever, and then my first time financing a car. My first car ever, it was a 1995 Jeep Wrangler. It wouldn't go into first, so I had to start in second every time. It was a tough car, but I love that thing. But it was fun. And then my second car that I purchased, I actually purchased it from the dealership that I ended up working at. And you know, I didn't really know much, didn't do my research, kind of got pressured into it, and bought the car. I absolutely loved it. It was a 2016 Corolla. Didn't have a single problem with it. Absolutely loved it. But it was really funny whenever I started working there, and I had them look up the deal to see. I was just curious, like, did I get a good deal? It turns out they made $3,000 on me, and I was super bummed. And that was like one of the turning points whenever I realized that, you know, it really kind of, you know, it sucks being, you know, buying a car and not, you know, knowing what you're doing. Knowing that my payment was like $300 whenever it could have been like, you know, $230, $240. So whenever I started thinking about that, that's whenever I wanted to get out of the sales side, and I wanted to get on the lending side, and, you know, keep people from making mistakes that I did. And, you know, being able to afford that $230, $240 payment and not paying that $300 payment. So those are my two stories.
So I guess I'll go next. My first car was a $1,000 cash car. It was a Grand Marquis. Like, I think it was like late 90s, early 2000 vehicle. I don't even remember the model anymore. But that was a great car. I bought it from a friend of one of my relatives. And he used to buy fix-up cars and sell them. And I think it was a great car. And a few years down the road, I resold that car for $3,200. So I think I got a great deal on it. It was a great car. Had a big motor, had a V8 motor, but you know, it was from a trusted source. After that, I bought a lot of bad used cars that I probably shouldn't have been purchasing, but it's just because I needed transportation like most people do. And I didn't really have the knowledge or the guidance or access to the resources to do the research. Later on down the road, once I started working for On the Road Lending, I was able to finance a vehicle for myself. But prior to that, I had gone to a dealership and I helped finance a different vehicle, and I had a negative. It's a large dealership here in the DFW area. They had added on a $3,800 warranty, and I think like a $1,200 service, tire, something contract. I don't even know what it was. But once I found out that I could get a reimbursement on those items that they added on to take the price from, you know, this to that, I called the accounting department and got a refund on that right away. Went to the principal on the loan, and then I was able to go. Even though they gave me a decent interest, they gave me 7% interest with the dealership bank that was there. I was able to get a even lower interest rate through a credit union a few months later. But that was after learning how financing actually works and having that knowledge and just having the confidence to follow through and make sure that they refunded me what was needed. Otherwise, I think most people don't ever pursue that. I think most people, they work 9 to 5, they're busy, they have busy lives. They don't have time to call every day, you know, call a dealership every day and figure out what it is that was added on their contract. Most people just want to get in, they want to get a car, and they want to go on about their lives. And by doing that, I saved over $4,000 on this particular vehicle by making sure, by reading the contract and by following through. And I think that's why it's important to be an educated consumer, because it could literally save you thousands of dollars.
I definitely agree. I was sitting there looking at your faces light up, thinking about your first car. And I can't tell you, there aren't too many people no matter how bad your car was, you love the feeling of independence and driving and going to where you can go on your own, whether it's a bad car or not. Mine was horrible. But despite that, the thing that makes it so great is that now you are educated. You are not only smarter about your finances, but you're a smarter consumer as well. And that's the big piece that we want everybody to take away from that, is not just be smart about what you can afford, what you can drive off the lot with, how far your dollars can go, but be smart about a consumer as well too. Know that you're not being taken advantage of, that you're not getting in a really bad car, and that someone is not just, giving you the runaround. And so that I definitely appreciate everything that you guys have mentioned. And if anybody has any other questions at all, I will leave it to you, Vincent.
There's one thing I'd like to mention that I think we've talked about a couple times, but it's about getting a warranty or a service contract on your vehicle. There is nothing wrong with getting a warranty. It's really based on preference. The main thing is to know what you're buying whenever you're getting that warranty. Don't just say, I want a warranty. Have them tell you what the warranty is covered. One thing is, know the deductible amount. It's just like insurance. Whenever you have a repair that needs to be done, you do have to pay your deductible. For our clients, we have our deductibles at $100. So anytime they have any issues, all they have to do is pay $100, whether it's a $2,000 repair or a $5,000 repair. All they have to do is just pay $100. So those are the two most important things. Whenever you're at a dealer and you're thinking about getting a warranty, make sure you talk about the total cost of the warranty. A lot of dealers are going to talk to you about warranties and by your monthly payment. They'll say like, oh, it's only $10 more a month. It's only $20 more a month, stuff like that. That is them playing games. There's some trickery going on there, and they make it sound like it's too good to be true. Only $5 more a month, when actually they're adding stuff on and messing with your interest rate to make it seem like it's only $5 more a month, when actually it's $30 to $40 to $50 more a month. So make sure you're paying attention to that. Know the total amount of the warranty. One thing I do highly recommend getting is gap insurance. It's guaranteed asset protection. That's for if you ever get in a wreck and you have negative equity, the gap insurance will cover that negative equity. We normally charge between $300 to $400 for our gap insurance, and that's what dealers normally pay to get it. I've seen dealers charge anywhere from $800 to $1,200 for gap insurance. So that's another thing is, they'll say it's only $5 more a month, but 5 times 72 months, it adds up. So just make sure you're paying attention to what it costs total and not just what they're telling you it's going to cost you a month. But I just wanted to touch base on that before we continued.
Yeah, and before we go on to, I wanted to add one more. So we did learn today that our clients have saved over $55,000 by having that warranty on their vehicles. Over $55,000 on repairs so far, right? So it is worth it if you have the right product at the right price, and that's what we try to look at. That's like Ben said, we look at the actual price, but if you're overpaying for something, then it might not be the best option. Like I was getting charged almost $4,000 on a warranty. I don't think that, I know that was marked up, over 50% for sure. But if everything comes at the right price, it will save you money long term. I do want to learn about Vincent's first car experience.
Well, I had actually a pretty good experience purchasing my first car. My wife and I both saved up to make down payments on our first cars, and we went to Toyota in Irving and actually bought both of our cars at the same time. Before we went in to buy our cars, we worked on building up our credit. So luckily for us, we actually got really good interest rates and bought 2 brand new cars on the same day. So we're fortunate enough to go through that experience, and we actually learned a lot sitting through that whole process, which took maybe about 5 or 6 hours in total from start to finish. But everyone at the dealership was helpful to us, and once they found out that we were buying 2 cars at the same time, they kind of started treating us a little better. because we were young. You know, this was seven years ago. So, you know, it was a good experience, but, you know, I wish I would have known a lot more about going in, like a lot about what you guys talked about right now. I kind of wish I would have known back then, because maybe we would have ended up getting a better deal than we did. But we were pretty fortunate in the long run overall. So any other questions from anyone in the audience?
One thing I'd like to say is just what you should expect for warranty cost. Our warranties for clients cost anywhere from, I think I've seen it as low as $1,200 up to, I think, probably $2,200. So anywhere in that range, you know, that's kind of how you know you're paying the right amount. You know, if they're telling you you're about to spend $4,000 or $5,000 on a warranty, you know, that's whenever I would probably pass on it, or let them know you're interested, but not at that price if you really want to get it. It just kind of goes back to being able to negotiate. I guess probably the easiest way to learn that is probably get on YouTube and just watch some videos and pick up some tips on kind of what you can do and how you can say it.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in to part 3 of our virtual workshop series. And thank you to Ben and Manny for being our moderators this evening, and to Shaylin as well for all her great questions. And then a really big thank you to everyone on the On the Road Lending team for working together in partnership with Big Thought to put on this virtual workshop series. So thank you all again. And like I said, this session is being recorded and will be shared by On the Road and their team on their website in the next few weeks. Thank y'all.
Thank y'all. And I do want to offer my services. If you're buying a car and you're not buying it through us, if you're buying it on your own and you have any questions about the numbers or your warranty and you just want a second opinion, feel free to reach out to us or call On the Road Lending, ask for Ben. I'd be happy to help you out.
Thank you, Ben. All right.
Thank you,
Well,
guys.
thank you all.
Thanks, guys.
You have a good evening.
You too.